One more thing. The Memphis Grizzlies are reportedly shopping Ja Morant and are looking for young players and draft picks in exchange. Should the Heat get involved? We'll talk about that next.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang and become an everydayer. That means subscribing, tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, and signing up for the Everydayer Club with the link in the show notes. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real GM Radio. A bonus episode for you today. If you missed the full Friday episode with my co-host David Ramil on the heels of the Heat's game against the Bulls getting postponed, we posted that last night. We also talked about whether the Heat's experiment of Bam Adebayo and Kel'el Ware in that front court has failed. You're going to want to check that out. You can find that in your podcast feed and on YouTube. But we got some bonus content for you here on Friday afternoon. I want to talk about this report about Ja Morant. This is from Shams Charania, who reports that the Memphis Grizzlies are entering offers to potentially move two-time All-Star Ja Morant ahead of the February 5th NBA trade deadline, sources told ESPN. I'm reading directly from his story that was just posted a few minutes ago. He goes on to say, multiple teams are pursuing Morant in trade talks, and rival executives believe the Grizzlies would prioritize draft picks and young players in return, sources said. This is the first time the Grizzlies have engaged other teams in trades for Morant, who was the number 2 pick in the 2019 draft. Morant, 26, is under contract with the Grizzlies through the 2027-28 season, so 3 more years, to this one and then 2 more. He is eligible to sign up to a 3-year, $178 million extension this summer. He's averaging 19 points, 7.6 assists, blah, blah, blah. He goes on to say, Memphis is considering multiple paths forward amid the emergence of several promising young players such as Cedric Howard, Zach Edey, Jalen Wells, and Cam Spencer, including building around them and 2023 Defensive Player of the Year, Jaren Jackson Jr. The Grizzlies also remain open to continue on with Morant as the focal part of a focal part of their retooling. Weird writing. I'll just say this right off the bat. The Grizzlies could say they're open to continuing with Ja Morant as part of their team, but they are leaking this in order to open up the telephone lines. Ja Morant's time in Memphis is over. That's what this means. This is very similar to what we heard right before Trae Young got moved to the Wizards, that the Hawks are working with Trae Young's representation to find a landing spot for him, blah, 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 blah. And then you saw some of the reporting go around there. They were trading Trae Young. And the Trae Young trade basically amounts to a salary dump for Atlanta. Now, I don't know that the Morant market will be as bad as the Trae Young market. There's some different circumstances, right? Like, both of them are point guards, mercurial, personality. Maybe it's your cup of tea, maybe it's not. But with Trae Young, he was entering a year where an offseason where he could just become a free agent potentially, or opt into a pretty expensive contract, which is, as much as Ja Morant is making, Trae Young was making more. So it was all that, right? And weirdly enough, because Trae Young has been more available, there's actually more of a track record of, we can't really win at the highest level with this guy. Whereas with Ja, he's almost, in a comparison against Trae Young specifically, and I only mean it in this way, he almost has an advantage of having missed so much time because there's still a little bit of a mystery box element to Ja Morant. We've seen him in the playoffs. When he's healthy in the playoffs, he was dominant, man. And that was the only time we really saw him. Right? Trae Young has the one run in 2021, but we've seen him in other spots in the play-in tournament and stuff like that, not necessarily rise to the occasion. We've seen him in other playoff series, specifically against the Heat, where they just target him over and over and over on defense, and it was just clear that there was only a certain level that you can get to with Trae Young as a focal point of your team. With Ja Morant, it's just a little bit different because his athleticism, his talent, all that stuff is just so through the roof, and the fact that he's been so unavailable could lead some front offices to say, well, what if it works for us? So I think the Ja Morant trade market won't be the same as the Trae Young trade market was, which was basically just the Wizards. Not basically, it was just the Wizards. And they offered CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert no draft picks. Now you're seeing this from this report from Memphis saying that they're going to be seeking young players and draft picks in return for Ja Morant. Worth noting here that the Grizzlies recently traded last offseason Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic and got 4 first-round picks back. They do have a bunch of good young players. I like Cedric Howard a lot. Zach Edey's been a little up and down, but there's been games where he looks dominant. Jalen Wells was, I think, first-team all-rookie last year, certainly deserving of it. Cam Spencer's a knockdown shooter. Like, there's a bunch of good young players on that team. Not to mention that Jaren Jackson Jr. is still a very good defensive player with some offensive upside. So they're already starting to make this move into a little bit of a younger team. And Ja is 26 years old, will be 27 soon. They could ask for young players and draft picks. I don't think they're going to get both. They could get like a little bit of both. But when you hear a team say we want young players and draft picks, they're talking about we want a blue chip young player and we want good draft picks. That's what that really means. I don't think the Grizzlies are getting that for Ja Morant. I think you might get one. I think you might get one good young player. I think you might get one draft pick with lottery potential. I don't think you're getting both. I don't think you're getting for Ja Morant what you got for Desmond Bane. I think that's just a symptom of today's NBA and the apron atmosphere that we live in. Ja Morant is a better basketball player when he's on the court than Desmond Bane. I don't think anybody questions that. But Desmond Bane is more available and has his next contract is not going to be potentially as expensive as Morant's next contract, and he's making less than Morant right now. And he's under contract for 3-4 more years. So you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You don't have to worry about the contract stuff that you have to worry about with, like, that you had to worry about with Trae Young, for instance, in Atlanta's case, or that you will potentially have to worry about within the next couple of years with Ja Morant. And he's available, and he's an easier, cleaner fit in most places. In all places, really. Even if he's not as good in a vacuum as a player as Ja Morant. And that's the new CBA that we're living in. Would it be nice to have Ja Morant on your roster? Sure. Most teams would agree to that. Yeah, we'd love to have Ja Morant on our team. Sure. Athletic freak, awesome when he's out there. Transition nightmare. Yep, all these things. Great talent. No question. Still pretty young. But you can't just do that in today's NBA anymore. You have to be very intentional about where you spend your money and where you're going to kind of move your oxygen, right? Like, who's taking up all the oxygen in the room? Ja Morant takes up a lot of oxygen in the room. Do you want to be a Ja Morant team or not? And that's what I think a lot of front offices are first and foremost asking themselves as we get into Ja Morant trade season. So that's where we're at with Ja. I think the market, like I said, I don't think the Grizzlies are going to get what they got for Desmond Bane. I think they'll get one good piece, whether it's a young player or first. That's more than the Hawks got for Trae Young. I don't think they're getting a bunch for Ja Morant. And there's a reason for that, right? Let's do a little deep dive into Ja Morant here. The stats. So he's averaging 19 points per game on 7.6 assists per game this season, only in 18 games, less than 30 minutes per game. The guy has not played this season, hardly at all. The three-point shot never really was there. He had that one really strong year in 2021, 2022, where the Grizzlies went to the playoffs. He was second-team All-NBA, finished 7th in MVP voting that year. He scored 27.4 points per game, 6.7 assists per game, shot 34% from three-point range, which isn't great, but it's good for Ja, and it's definitely serviceable. And he shot 53% on two-pointers, got to the free throw line a ton. He was awesome. Rebounded a bunch, best rebounding season of his career. He was awesome that year. He was 22 years old. There were conversations about Ja Morant, next young American star. This was before the Anthony Edwards breakout. Remember, Ja Morant was Anthony Edwards before Anthony Edwards was Anthony Edwards. Like, it was Ja's league for the taking. And then, of course, we remember the gun stuff, and then the injuries and the suspensions, and then more injuries, and then more injuries, and then even the one-game suspension this year. Since that 2022 season, he played 61 games the following year, still an all-star, still good numbers, 26 points per game on 8 assists per game. It was his best playmaking season. Shooting percentages dipped a little bit, but it wasn't crazy. And then you got the long-term suspension, the gun stuff, all that happens. In 2023, 2024, he plays only 9 games. Who cares about the stats? They don't matter. He only played 9 games. Last year, he plays 50 games, averaged 23 points per game. His shooting percentage goes from 49% overall during his best season to 45% last year. Shot 30%, 31% from three-point range. Free throw attempts have dipped. Assists are still pretty, like the playmaking stuff didn't change all that much, but the turnovers spiked. And the rebounding started to fade. So you started to see it last year. And then this year, limited sample in 18 games, but now he's shooting 40% overall from the field and 20% from three-point range. He has gotten worse in all of those statistical categories. And then you do a deeper dive into some of this stuff, and it's not great. What Ja Morant should be doing is finishing at a really high rate at the rim. We know as a three-point shooter, he's never going to be elite. At best, he'll be average as a three-point shooter. But you could still, we have seen this, right? You can see guys, as long as they're able to dominate in the paint and dominate at the rim, you don't have to be an elite three-point shooter as long as you can dominate at the rim and play make for others. You might not be making a ton of threes, but if you're doing that, if you're creating that gravity at the rim and able to kick out and find your teammates for open threes, you're not making threes, but you're creating threes for your teammates, and that's just as good. Well, part of that has to be converting at the rim. Okay. Well, during his best season in 2022, he was taking 33% of his shots within 3 feet of the basket in the restricted area. So a third of his shots were exactly where he wanted to come from. And he was converting them at a 71% clip. Elite. Okay. This guy didn't miss. Now, this year, 22% of his shots at the rim. Steep drop off. Not nearly enough for Ja Morant. And he's only converting at 66% of the time. Not good enough. Small sample size. Yeah, okay, last year, 23% of his shots were at the rim. Still small. And you look across, since he shot 33% of his shots, a third of his shots at the rim in 2022, his All-NBA year, second team All-NBA year, he hasn't taken more than 30% of his shots at the rim since then. He's traded out a lot of those shots for threes, which is not where you want him to take most of his shots, and long mid-range jumpers, which are not ideal for him either. And that tells you one of two things. Either teams have schemed against him and he's deciding, okay, I got to diversify my portfolio a little bit and try to and get better at these shots. Or he's hurt, not where he needs to be health-wise, and he's doing the easy thing, which is to dribble into these long twos or threes, even if it's not the optimal space for him to be taking shots from on the court. I think it's the latter. The health issues are there, and you can watch some of these games that Ja Morant is playing. Sometimes he looks amazing. Sometimes he looks like the Ja Morant of 2022, no question. You're like, this guy's a top 10 player in the league. Most of the time, you watch these games and you're like, what's kind of going on with this guy? Why is he just kind of lazily dribbling into these long jumpers? He should be getting downhill. But the health stuff wears on you. And he's only 26, but man, his knees are 36, dude. Like, this is a body that has broken down. He has played 65 games, so to qualify for end of season awards, one time in his career. He was a rookie. Since then, 63 games, 57 games, 61 games, 9 games, 50 games, 18 games. Yes, there's suspensions involved. There's a lot more injuries involved. This guy misses a lot of basketball games. But when he's out there, when the Grizzlies have had a competitive roster around him, they have also won a lot of those basketball games that he's played in. So if you're a team that's asking themselves, hey, should we trade for this guy? The first question you have to ask yourself is, can we get something out of Ja Morant that the Grizzlies have not been able to get out of him these last couple of years? Should the Heat be one of those teams? And if so, what should they offer for Ja Morant? We'll talk about that next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new. Boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing's perfect. Right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds a little extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Locked On Heat. This is one more thing. We're talking about Ja Morant. What would the Heat offer for Ja Morant? What would a Heat offer for Ja Morant look like? So I already outlined the pros and the cons of a Ja Morant trade, okay? So I'm going to leave that over there. The Heat will make whatever decision that they want to make. Are they going to be one of these teams that call the Memphis Grizzlies about Ja Morant? I do think you have to at least call. I think you have to do the due diligence. And in Miami, you have two things that the Grizzlies don't. You have a world-class conditioning and health program that has resurrected a lot of careers over the years. And if they think that they can get the best out of Ja Morant physically, it is 100% worth a phone call and a conversation. The second thing is they have the infrastructure and the leadership that the Grizzlies have lacked over the last few years. Taylor Jenkins was a very good head coach. He was not able to keep the outside noise away from Ja Morant and make basketball the main thing in a way that the Heat, frankly, have shown time and time again they can do. The Jimmy Butler thing ended poorly, and it was ugly, and a lot of bridges burnt at the end of that thing. But it worked for the better part of 5 years in a way that it has never worked in previous stops for Jimmy Butler. And that says a lot about what the Heat can do. They're able to maintain their focus, make basketball the main thing, keep the main thing the main thing. You hear that all the time around here. Ja Morant is a different kind of cat, right? He comes with a different set of accoutrements than Jimmy Butler does. Jimmy Butler is very much sort of a bull in a china shop, right? He's going to do whatever he wants to do. Ja Morant's less that and more kind of squirrely, kind of looking in a lot of different directions all the time. My dad's over here telling me this. I got this person in my ear telling me that. Every time you talk to people around the league about Ja Morant, it's always, there's a lot of people around Ja Morant competing for influence over Ja Morant. And so the challenge for the Heat would be, if we bring him in here, can we make sure that we are able to help him keep his eye on the ball? And if they can, and they could do that, and they can get him healthy or healthier than what he's been the last few years, then depending on what it would cost, yeah, I think even getting 60 games, 50, 60 games of Ja Morant every year and making sure that he was healthy for the playoffs, that could be worth the risk, depending on what you have to give up. Now, I wouldn't be giving up everything. This is not a superstar trade. Ja Morant is a depreciated asset at this point, right? But we've seen the Heat get these guys, shine them up, and make the most out of them in the past. Jimmy Butler is a great example. So you wouldn't be doing, like, this isn't the honest trade. You would not be offering a bunch of young players. But like I said at the top, I think Memphis will be able to get one of the things that they're looking for. A good pick or a good young player. I don't think they're getting both, and I don't think they're getting a lot of either one. So what would a Heat offer for Ja Morant look like then? I'm not saying that they should do this. I'm just saying let's assume for a second that the Heat decide, you know what, let's make a call and let's make an offer. And let's see how the Grizzlies feel about it. What would that offer look like? The first one is something I talked about on yesterday's show, or 2 days ago. I don't remember when. It was this week at some point, where we're going through Terry Rozier fake trades. You can find that up in your feed. Terry Rozier and Davion Mitchell. And maybe you throw in a first-round pick. And that's the young thing. That's the draft pick that the Grizzlies want. Terry Rozier is expiring. Rozier, to be clear, would never play for Memphis. He wouldn't even get on a plane, right? He would just, they would take on the contract that's expiring and waive it. They get Davion Mitchell, who is not younger, right, but is a good fit there, and a first-round pick potentially. I don't know what pick it would be. It's distant 2029, something like that, but that would be it. So you could do that. I don't know. If I'm Memphis, is that moving the needle? I like the idea of having Davion Mitchell here. We can kind of be a little bit more defensive-oriented. We got Davion. We got Jaren Jackson Jr. We've seen the Heat put together a top-5 defense with Bam and Davion Mitchell. Why couldn't we do that here in Memphis? Plus, we've got Zach Edey here. There's some things that I like about that. Jalen Wells was very good defensively. Cedric Howard has a lot of upside there. Vince Williams Jr. Has his moments as a wing defender. That could be a new identity for us. And we don't have anything close to the point of attack defender that Davion Mitchell is. And those guys are hard to find. And a first-round pick doesn't sound like a lot for Ja Morant. Grizzlies fans might be upset the way that Hawks fans were upset about only CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert. But then again, Trae Young just went for only CJ McCollum's expiring and Corey Kispert. So maybe that's something. What if it wasn't a first-round pick? What if they did try to send a young player? You're not trading Kel'el for Ja. That doesn't make sense, really, for either side. Jovic, it's not enough to get it done, right? If I'm Memphis, I'm not moved by Nikola Jovic. He's got his own injury concerns. It's been up and down for him this season. There's a poison pill contract that's a little bit more of a complication. I'm not interested in Nikola Jovic if I'm Memphis. I want Jaime. If I'm Memphis Grizzlies, I want Jaime Jaquez Jr. I want Jaime. I want to pair him up with Jalen Wells, Cedric Howard. I've got Zach Edey. I got Jaren Jackson Jr. I want Jaime. Point forward, can initiate my offense a little bit. That's the guy I'm asking for if I'm Memphis. So for the Heat, the question is, would you trade Jaime Jaquez Jr. in a Ja Morant deal? What does that look like? Terry Rozier is expiring, Simone Fontecchio for matching money, and Jaime Jaquez Jr. as the centerpiece of the deal for Memphis. So the two offers that I could come up with working on the trade machine, Terry Rozier, Davion Mitchell on a distant first for Ja Morant, or Terry Rozier, Simone Fontecchio, Jaime Jaquez Jr., no draft pick to Memphis for Ja Morant. So that's what I could come up with. What would you do if you were the Heat? What do you think about Ja Morant? Let us know in the YouTube comments. Thanks for tuning in to one more thing of Locked On Heat. Make sure you subscribe, follow Locked On Heat so you get all the latest episodes. We'll be back. The Heat play Saturday night. They play Sunday night. David and I will be back Sunday night with a recap of the Thunder game. Have a great weekend.